Hello friends, welcome back. This is part 2 of an animation demo for a little combat scene with one of my cartoon friends. I did the first half where it was just laying out all this animation and getting kind of the stick figure motion of the whole thing rough animated, and now I'm kind of going into the next phase of the game and having it look like more than just a mannequin flip-flopping around on the screen. I have it divided into a couple different layers. There's the tentacle layer, there's a layer for her, and right now I'm drawing a completely separate layer for her hair because it has its own secondary action. This is a good frame where you can see that her head is kind of stretched out like that, and that's just in cartoons the squash and stretch to really emphasize the motion of something, and the faster something moves the more you can warp it around to emphasize that quick movement across the screen. It's basically like animating motion blur, or rather drawing motion blur, where if it were live action or something, or a computer generated thing where the motion blur is put in automatically, it would just be this smear of color across the screen. But if it's a drawing, you get to draw all that, so I end up drawing her head looking like a weird oblong sort of thing, and her hair streaking across the screen is like the tail on a comet. Getting the motion of her body figured out first. Like, here's another one where you can kind of see her head stretching around. It's like if you throwing a water balloon. It's not going to throw like a tennis ball. It's going to like stretch and squish all over the place. Especially the more force you put behind the throw, the more it's going to warp all over the place. That water balloon is just going to stretch like bonkers crazy. Same thing here, but the volume stays the same. The water balloon has the same amount of water in it, whether it's like stretched out like a regular round shape. Same volume, and that's the thing to keep in mind. It's for doing this sort of squash and stretch stuff. And her hair is really fun because it follows along behind. It's kind of like, you ever see those gymnasts doing kind of the floor exercises where they've got that ribbon swirling around? It's basically just trailing along behind her head, and I really like doing it because it's I don't know, it's fun to have that movement follow along, and everything that the hair does is a few frames behind what her head does, so it responds to the motion of her head. Like here, her body stops moving after she's done her little backflip thing, but even then, like, see, this frame is her body's in the same place, but her hair is kind of bouncing back from the most extension it has. So yeah, watching it play through, and I kind of like how her hair looks. I like it. Here's the thing. Here's the catch. Her hair at the end of the clip is much shorter than it was at the whole beginning of the thing. So that happens sometimes. You kind of like lose the plot, or like each different drawing, it's just a tiny bit different, and then by the end of the 80 drawings or whatever, you're like, damn it, it's evolved into a whole different haircut. So now I'm just going back and fixing it. Again, this is all still on the same hair layer. I'm just drawing over it in red the edits, so I guess the alterations and the changes to give her a haircut and clip it down shorter. And I pretty much say it in every one of my little videos that I use TV Paint in, that I love this feature of TV Paint because I can draw different colors in the same layer, and I have an eraser for red, I have an eraser for blue, I have an eraser for green and black. So if I can draw these edits over this exact same drawing, and then I get the blue eraser like I am here, and I don't have to worry about accidentally erasing all my fixes. So I'm going through and just removing the parts that have been changed, the blue parts, and you can see that like I didn't change the hair closer to her head attached to her skull, because that part was fine. That's not where the length of it. I also, in that swoop forward, left the hair super long again, for squash and stretch purposes, because she's streaking like a comet behind her as she, you know, gets thrown through space. I also went through and had it mushed against the tentacle when she was stabbing it to the wall. Now I've moved on to kind of the next bit where I'm just cleaning it up and getting the final kind of drawing, final line work in there. And again, this is over the same layer using the same sort of principles, except just the black line. So I can draw in red on the same layer, erase the red without having to worry about erasing the black or the blue. So I basically have 3 different colors that I can work with it without having to worry about screwing one up. With the movement of the tentacle here, you can kind of see some squash and stretch too, where it's trying to pull away from where it's been, you know, stabbed, because ouch. And it thins out a little bit as it stretches. Think like stretching a gummy worm. It's going to get skinny in the middle where the stretch is the most intense, but again, the volume is going to stay the same. Yeah. So in the previous frame, I don't know if you remember, but you can click back a step. I think I painted her leg blue as well, because I was not sure about that. I think I was going to change it. Don't remember if I actually got around to changing it. Might have forgotten to do that part, but it was extra long, so I painted it blue as in like, fix this thing later, you goof. But once the motion is all figured out with the mannequin or the stick figure or whatever, the red and blue parts that are underneath the black line, then the rest is much easier to keep track of and have it move through, and adding all the details is a piece of cake. Also keep in mind that this is sped up, I think like 10 times faster than I actually drew it. Again, here you can see that her hair is all stretched out way longer than it actually is in the final frames of the clip. But again, that's because it's playing in like the squash and stretch and the motion blur of her hurling herself through space, and her hair is trailing behind her, you know, a few moments later in the motion of it, a few frames later. So, just going through and adding the different details. I drew that little marker in the corner that's a scale because I think I kind of had her changing size just overall over the course of this clip. So, I mean, that's another thing, just like her hair ended up too long and I had to go back and fix that. I put that little marker in as in like I need to go and check and make sure that her body is the same size in this frame or that frame as it is supposed to be in the clip in its entirety. And you kind of got to go back and forth between the front and the back, beginning and end of your animation, and different parts in the middle to make sure that things are the same size as they are supposed to be the whole way through. This is probably one of my favorite frames because you saw, like, give her the full-on crazy eyes. Like, this is the most like manic her expression is through the whole clip. Yeah, she's just one of my favorite characters to draw. She's got her hair like a freaking meteor comet trailing behind her. She could look like a crazy person whenever I want her to, and she's got a big sword to swing around and chop stuff up. I don't know. Love this character. Again, going into like the motion blur kind of warpiness, you can see that her leg up in the air is stretched out. And that's another thing where you can look back at the frame before and it's traveled a long distance across that screen in like one frame, which means it's moving very fast. And that's why when movements like that, when it's going really quickly, those are the frames that you're gonna warp like that you're gonna streak and distort to take the place of motion blur. This is also the frame where the impact on the tentacle is the biggest, so you have it squished down like a cushion or a pancake and get flattened underneath her as she slams down on it. So that's the most high impact portion against the tentacle, so you can flatten that out and squish as much as you want. Here in this frame, she's starting to, like, the tentacle's starting to bounce back from its flattened shape, and she's sort of bouncing off of it. Her eyeball's half open because when that was that heavy impact of her landing on it, you can see it, her eye was closed, and you don't want to just go closed to open. Give it a second to, like a halfway frame to, even though you open your eyes really quickly, like it's a very quick motion, but have her get that one frame where it's halfway between. Every time I click over to the next frame to start cleaning up, I did the line stuff on the tentacle first, mostly because it's in the foreground, so it's going to be in front of a lot of whatever else I end up drawing. But also because it's kind of there's a whole lot less line mileage for the tentacle. There's a lot less lines to draw in. She's got a lot more details going on, so clearly she's going to take longer to draw. So the tentacle is just much simpler of an object on the screen, so I just got it out of the way and moved on to the more interesting character. And as far as secondary motion, in the tentacle is a weird one, but you can kind of see that bump, that high point in the tentacle, halfway between the sword and the end of the tentacle, kind of traveling from where she smacked into it in the middle with her elbow, and it's kind of traveling down to the end of the tentacle like a wave. That's part of the secondary motion that I built into that that character type. Again, because it's not like it has bones or anything, so it will respond like a wave. Anyway, here's the thing. Shazam! I hope you like it. Hope you found something interesting in here, something useful to take away. It was fun to make. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see any of my other stuff, I have an Instagram account where I post some of my sketches and doodles and stuff. But other than that, have yourselves a lovely day. Thanks for watching and listening to me ramble. Okay, bye.